Michael Jordan Steakhouse uses their product.
Michael Jordan Steakhouse makes their steaks with your guys' meat.
Yep.
That is sick. That's awesome.
So I just picked up a copy of Chicago Magazine, read restaurant reviews, highlighted any restaurant review that talked about utilizing local or sustainable product, and then I just started cold calling chefs in Chicago. Yep.
All right, LouisJohn Slagel, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate it a lot.
You're welcome. Looking forward to it.
Right on. So let's just start with this. What's your middle name? I just said your name's LouisJohn Slagel, but that's your first name, LouisJohn. So, yeah, what's the middle?
Yeah, my middle name's Paul.
Oh, okay. So, you got three first names then.
Oh, basically, yeah.
LouisJohn Slagel. LouisJohn Paul Slagel. Interesting. Are you named after someone or what?
I think I'm actually named after three different uncles, Louis, John, and Paul.
Oh, okay.
But my mom got creative, I guess, and stuck a couple of them together. So
that's hilarious. I was very curious. I was like, LouisJohn, I don't know any other LouisJohn, so that's interesting. But before we dive into this thing, how about you tell the listeners and myself just a little bit about who you are and what it is you do?
Sure. As you mentioned, my name's LouisJohn Slagel. Live in Fairbury, Illinois, or in rural Fairbury. Born and raised there. So my wife, Leslie, and I live just south of town on a farmstead there. We've got 5 kids where we run a farm, raise livestock, certified organic crop operation, a butcher shop, and a few other things we do as well to keep busy. But that's kind of the main priorities.
What are the few other things? You said to keep busy as if you're not already busy enough, but yeah, what are the other things?
So I own a restaurant in Forest, the Coffee Steamer, but that's just our building. So somebody else runs that business. We started a pet food business a few years ago called Farm to Bowl. And so we've got our own pet food brand. Bought the elevator in Forest and turned it into organic grain siding to fill railroad cars.
Wow.
Filling our first ones today. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, congratulations. Man.
And then we've got a barn at the farm where I live that's licensed as a restaurant. We do farm tours and dinners in the summer.
Right.
We have chefs out there for us. So
okay.
A few other things that aren't full-time but occupy some of our time, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask about those dinners because that's very interesting, but I didn't know you did all those different things. Would you consider yourself more of a businessman than a farmer, or are you still primarily a farmer?
Oh, maybe 50-50. I mean, I spent time already this morning in the chicken house and hauling turkeys and sorting cattle, but I do a lot of business off my phone, so without my phone, I struggle a little bit to get everything pulled together as far as coordinating and stuff, so I do a lot of business on the go.
What's a typical day look like for you? Or is it hard to say because they're so different one day to the next?
I'd say one day to the next varies a lot. It's more of maybe a typical week, if you will. But usually start 4:30 to 5:30. Coffee and Bible and quiet time in the morning and go from there. But from there, anything from taking care of livestock to running equipment on the farm to, like I said, I do spend a lot of time on my phone coordinating with customers, chefs, my secretaries in the office, business, or the managers at the meat plant, stuff like that. So I don't really have a super regular schedule, I guess, if you will.
Right. It sounds like that Bible part is necessary, not just because it's a good thing to do, for your salvation, your knowledge, everything like that, and your soul, but also I feel like you need that given how stressful this stuff sounds. Like you're on the phone right away in the morning with a number of different people who are asking a number of different things. I mean, does your faith keep you grounded and keep you sane, would you say? Or at least is it a big part of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Super important part of it. I guess I enjoy what I do. I feel like I just using the gifts I've been given, and by, like you said, starting out the right way. Prayer and reading is definitely super important and makes a good start to the day. I don't really get too stressed out usually, so that's probably a important part of, I guess, what I do or why I like what I do is because if I was easily stressed, I probably wouldn't do too well at what I'm doing, I guess.
Have you always been like that? Easy. I don't know if easygoing is the right word because you get a lot of stuff done. You're not just, fly by the seat of your pants, but you can handle stuff. These stressful things that would be stressful to others aren't so stressful to you, is what I'm getting from you. Have you always been that way, or did you learn that?
I don't know. Probably just always been that way.
Fair enough. You come from a large family of 13 siblings, and I know a few of them. I know Harmony. She's a real nice lady. I know Logan, quick as lightning. Some people think he could have gone to the NFL. But what was it like growing up with those siblings?
It was really a positive experience, I guess. I mean, I enjoyed. I'm fourth out of the 13, so I'm the fourth oldest out of the 13 of us. So definitely a lot of younger siblings. But I really enjoyed being part of a big family. Like you said, growing up playing football, basketball, and stuff together. You always had enough people around to play without even having to invite other people over. So I guess that was fun. Definitely, for the most part, positive experience. There's obviously just interesting having a big family, and going on trips would be interesting. Actually, a lot of times growing up, the younger kids, we used to call them the twerps. That was the younger kids. But anyway, kids wouldn't necessarily always come on all the family trips just because it was hard to take 13 kids on one trip at a time. So there might be a trip with the older kids or another one with the younger kids.
Were these like vacations? Or?
Right. Yeah, like, I mean, if we went to the Smoky Mountains or something like that, then, Harmony and Logan and the younger ones might just get left at their uncle and aunts or something.
Wow. I guess, what are you going to do? You'd have to take two different cars, and unless you'd either have to take a limousine or two different big cars. I guess you couldn't really bring them all along. I would imagine, just a guess here, were the younger ones pretty close then? Because since they were practically like segregated?
Well, I wouldn't say that so much, but obviously whenever, when we were going on trips when I was, 12 years old, the younger ones weren't even born yet, if that makes sense. So,
right.
I mean, you have to keep that in mind. There's 20-some years between the oldest and the youngest.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to take a wild guess and assume that your family's also pretty religious.
Yeah.
Okay. And so let's talk about Slagel Family Farms here, though. I imagine that your dad was one of the main people on the farm, and before him, it was your grandpa. And so tell me, what are the roots of Slagel Family Farms? I mean, it goes way back to, 1588 or something?
1888.
Oh, it's a little off.
But yeah, my great-great-great-grandpa settled just a mile south of where my wife and I live in 1888. So our family's been farming in the Fairbury area for over 125 years. The farm's changed a little as far as it was more dairy focused. Like my grandpa was more of a dairy farmer. Then my dad started raising more hogs, and bringing a little more variety of livestock into the mix. So I guess the way we operate the farm now is still, I would call it more old-fashioned. Livestock are in open barns, access to the outside on a regular basis, natural breeding rather than AI. A lot of your more old-fashioned farming approach or technique, if you will. But it's still a different operation, obviously, than it was as far as, like I said, we're focusing more on meat now than we were, a couple generations ago.
So what is new school farming? What's that like, and how's it different from what you're doing?
Sure. Most commercial practices nowadays would be just larger scale, a lot larger volume, more in total confinement inside of confinement barns, generally focused on a single, whether it's hogs or dairy or whatever, more of a single focus, where we're running a lot more variety as far as different types of livestock and stuff.
Because you guys raised, let me see here, I think I have it in my notes. You and your siblings and your parents, I think, and your own children, you guys are raising hogs, cattle, sheep, goats, chickens, ducks, rabbits, corn, soybeans, hay, and pumpkins. Do you ever stop and think, maybe we don't need to do quite this much? Does that ever cross your mind?
Oh, maybe a little bit, but not too often. I guess most of it all ties together pretty well as far as um, our end consumer, which at this point is mostly high-end restaurants in the Chicagoland area, enjoy or like the variety, if that makes sense. Um, so having a good variety of product to offer is beneficial from that side of things. And then we did go away from the pumpkins. Haven't been doing those for a few years. We should probably update our website.
Okay.
But then, I don't know, we've added back in some alfalfa and clover, oats and wheat into our crop rotation as well. So still pretty good variety.
And I'm going to ask about the Chicago restaurants because that's very fascinating. But before we get to that, I want to ask, how did you wind up with the farm in the first place? Because you're the main guy in the operation, correct? And if I understand correctly, traditionally families will give the farm to the youngest son or daughter, but you were one of the oldest. So how did that happen?
So actually where my wife and I live is not necessarily the home place I grew up. My parents still live there and are still fairly active, but my youngest brother, Ethan, probably will, like you mentioned, end up on the actual farm site. But basically, I guess my two older brothers realized there wasn't enough profit potential in our farm operation the way it was ran. One of them works at an ag business just outside of town, and then my brother, Brandon, owns a construction company. So they moved on to things off the farm. I guess I just really enjoyed livestock farming, wanted to try to make a living there if I could. And so that's what kind of led into more of the value-added aspect of the operation.
Now, you said your parents are running something else. What do you mean? How are they? You have two farms or what's...
Right. So, yeah, we actually have multiple different building sites, if you will. I mean, we put it all under the name Slagel Family Farm. Because it's our family running it. But we have livestock, for example, where my wife and I live. My brother Logan, that you mentioned, lives a few miles down the road, and he's got cattle, hogs, chickens, stuff, ducks, all at his farm. My sister's a few miles down the road. We've got different livestock there. My parents are a few miles down the road from there. They have livestock there. So all the different livestock is kind of all pooled together and butchered at our butcher shop, and I do the marketing on it all. But we're, as a family, raising livestock at different locations, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes
perfect
where we
sense.
Live. Right. So. That makes more sense than what I was picturing, because what I was picturing is just some massive one single place with all these different animals, all these different operations. I mean, you'd have to have a lot of land for that, and it'd be chaos. So it makes more sense that there's separate locations like that. And you said you run the marketing side of things. Did you go to college? What'd you go to college for if you did? Valentine's Day is coming up, and you do not want to be the person who doesn't get your special someone a beautiful bouquet of flowers. The gift of flowers has long been a way of expressing your love and admiration for your significant other on this centuries-old holiday. But if you attempt to go out and find your own flowers, arrange them nicely, and get them to your person on time, you can go wrong in so many different ways. Lucky for you, Nature's Designs by Tiff in Fairbury is taking all the stress out of the holiday this year so that you can fully enjoy it with the person you love. Just call them up at 815-692-3024 and tell them that you'd like some flowers to be delivered to your loved one's address on Valentine's Day. You can even ask that they deliver in the morning or in the afternoon, and they can even include chocolates, stuffed animals, candles, bath products, plants, and other cute gift items as well to really put a smile on your loved one's face. So don't delay. Call up Nature's Designs by Tiff at 815-692-3024 and schedule your incredible Valentine's Day delivery package and make this Valentine's Day the best one yet.
Sure. I went to Joliet Junior College, studied ag production and swine management there, so I got a 2-year degree a couple 2-year degrees there in those areas. I would put a lot of my initial interest or the interest in the meat side of things, I guess, probably came about more from my days in FFA and ag class in Prairie Central. So I give credit to Mr. Miller, Rothert, and Ropp were all my ag teachers that did a great job.
Well, shout out to them. I bet they'll watch this. So cool.
But they all, were great teachers and motivated me, in the FFA area. And honestly, I guess just studying meat science in FFA kind of got me to realize that as a livestock farmer, I wasn't raising, I was raising animals, but the end product was meat, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the things that really stood out to me was there's a lot of farmers that view themselves as raising pork, or raising hogs. They raise hogs. Well, the end consumer doesn't buy a pig, right? You don't usually go buy a pig and bring it home with you. The end consumer buys pork. So realizing that I'm a farmer, but my finished product is pork and not a pig makes you view things a lot differently and, care a lot more about the quality of the product you're raising and all the different attributes that go into it. So whether it's feeding, genetics, whatever it is that plays into that finished product became a lot more important to me than just being a farmer raising a pig and selling it. If that makes sense to you.
Yes, absolutely. And people talk, you're in these high-end Chicago restaurants, like you were saying, and everyone knows that Slagle meats taste better than other meats. I go to Walmart all the time and I get meat, but every once in a while I'll have some Slagle meats and it's just better. It's more flavorful. It's more juicy. Why is that? What are you doing that other places are not doing that makes that the case?
Sure. There's a number of factors that go into it. It starts with genetics, so having the right breeds of livestock. We basically work with breeds that are going to end up with the best quality product, not necessarily worrying about which ones grow the fastest or have the highest return in a commercial setting. So start with the right genetics, a good feed program that's going to be consistent and lend towards meat quality. And I guess once again going back to FFA, and then took more classes on it in college, but just learning a lot more about meat quality and meat grading. When you know what you're looking at, it's a lot better to improve it and work with it and that sort of thing. But then also some of the approach and the techniques. So at the butcher shop, for example, our poultry, we do all air-chilled poultry, which is, as far as I know, the only facility in the state of Illinois that would do air-chilled poultry, which means they're chilled down simply in cold, high-velocity air rather than soaked in bleach water, which is more typical, standard. And our beef as well is dry-aged, which used to be common up until probably the 70s or 80s. They switched away from dry aging beef just because you could run larger capacity if you didn't do it.
What does dry aged mean?
The carcasses are basically just literally hung in a refrigerated room for 2 to 3 weeks.
Really?
And that kind of starts a breakdown process in some of the meat proteins and changes the flavor profile a little bit in it.
Okay, so why doesn't the meat go bad? Forgive me, by the way, I'm a novice when it comes to this stuff. I don't really know much of anything about this whole process. So why doesn't that meat go bad? I think of it like, not to paint this in the wrong way, but it's like if you had a dead body for 3 weeks, it'd be pretty rancid.
Sure. No, I guess I don't have all the scientific answers, but if it's done properly, obviously it's bled out. So for starters, all the blood is gone. A lot of people picture cutting up meat and picture blood, but there's no blood in a meat processing room if the animals were slaughtered and bled out properly. So that's the first thing that's going to make product go bad, is the blood still being in it. So as long as it's bled out properly and then kept at the proper refrigeration temperature, we actually have a further dry aging cooler where we'll take primals, whole ribeyes, and strips and sirloins up to 120 days.
120 days?
So like a 4-month.
Sorry, I'm yelling into the
time.
microphone. My bad. What? 120 days? Mm-hmm. And that makes it better?
I would say up to about 45 days. It's personal preference because it changes the flavor profile. My personal preference is 30 to 45 days is optimum for certain cuts. Beyond that, you kind of start to have like a nutty flavor. But it is pretty amazing that you can take a ribeye and literally trim the ends off that have dried out, and it looks it looks perfectly fine at 90 days or 100 days once you trim the face off. That's all assuming it's in the proper humidity, the proper temperature. It's it's not quite as simple as it sounds. I wouldn't say buy a ribeye and go put it in your fridge for 100 days.
That's what I'm picturing. I'm like, dude, I've had steaks, I've had chicken in my fridge, and that stuff gets bad quick. Could I go to Walmart and find any aged steaks? Is that a thing, or is that more of a higher end meat?
Probably more
practice?
of a higher end practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it tastes. Explain the taste of dry aged steak compared to non, because I'm sure probably the vast majority of the steaks that I've had in my life are not really aged.
Mm-hmm. I'm not the best to describe the flavor profiles. It'd probably be a better chef question because I don't really eat stuff that's not. So I mean, I'm not trying to sound whatever, but I haven't gone and bought a random steak from Walmart.
Right.
Like,
oh, you probably eat your own
often
supply.
or ever.
Right? Do you eat Slagle meats for dinner every night?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, you're just living off the good stuff. Interesting. Wow. I wonder what it'd be like. Maybe that'd be a fun video to do sometime. Have you try your own steak and then have you try some of the Walmart steak that I get. That'd be interesting. So, see here. Your farm is a smaller farm. It's a family farm. There's not a lot of family farms of your size that are still active, let alone successful in America. It's kind of a dying thing, I would imagine, but Slagel Family Farms seems to be thriving. Why aren't there that many small farms like yours, or at least why aren't they able to succeed? I'll start with that.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I would say at this point, what's really made our farm successful is the fact that we own and operate our own USDA processing facility at this point. So whenever I was in college and wanted to try to market our product, I started out having our product custom processed at another facility, then had the opportunity to work with Forest Meats that was located in Forest, to work through the facility there. And then we've added our own facility down the road a block. So we've got a couple different processing facilities we're working out of in Forest at the moment. But really having the ability to, take our product from start to finish, and custom process it, cut it just like a chef or customer wants, has been extremely important. Mm-hmm. And really it's become even more important in the last year or two with this COVID mess. It's actually been kind of crazy. A lot of people have gone back to wanting, I guess I would blame it on food security concerns. I'm not sure if that's totally accurate. But we do meat processing for other farmers as well. And, just for example, we're 7 days into January or into 2022, and we're booked for the whole year, for custom processing. So for what we process for other farmers, which is kind of a smaller part of our business, but we do offer it as a service for other local farmers, is booked out for the entire year. So if I didn't have my own facility and I was trying to do what I'm doing, I'd be at the mercy of that schedule. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Which is kind of a struggle.
Yeah, as a family farm that sells meat like you do, if your processing plant or your processor just, I don't know, who knows, they don't have enough people working, you're screwed. Because
Exactly.
you don't have anyone to butcher, cut up, package your stuff at that point, and then you have all these animals in your farm. It's like, yeah, you could really be in trouble. It is probably so valuable to you to... Now, do you own the whole processing line start to finish, from raising the animals to butchering to packaging? Like you own all that.
We do everything from start to finish, from breeding to feeding to slaughter, butcher, process, package, and delivery.
That is incredible, because I've heard of farmers who have their own farms and they raise livestock as well. They have to drive hundreds of miles to get to a processing plant. But for you have multiple within 10 miles.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a big benefit to making what we do and our brand and our farm work out or, successful.
So at one point you were kind of at the mercy of a processing plant, right? In
Correct.
Forest?
I actually started out working with Locker in
Okay.
Chenoa, Illinois, and they were doing custom processing until we started in Forest.
Okay, but Forest also at that time had another processing plant that you could have gone to?
Forest Meats was operated there until I started, and the Steidinger family was doing custom processing. They were just looking to get out of custom processing about the time I got out of school, so I started working in the facility there and leasing it from them and processing our own product as well as for other farmers there. So that's kind of what got me started there.
It seems like Fairbury and Forest are kind of like these hubs of meat processing and just livestock raising. It's kind of incredible, honestly.
Mm-hmm. It is interesting. I mean, there are a lot of smaller farms, and I guess in a sense we might almost feed off of each other. Just the idea that if you see something happening that works, a neighbor might be more likely to give it a try, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Can you walk me through the process of, you from the time you get an animal, I don't even know how you get an animal into your farm. If you order them, what goes on? I guess you would breed them and then you just have them. They're born there. But walk me through the process of from that point to when your meat hits the shelves. And I'll start there, but I want to ask about one specific part a little in detail.
Fairbury Furniture is Central Illinois' champion furniture store. This family-owned business offers a vast selection of premium furniture items from all of your favorite brands, including Sealy, Best Home Furnishings, Leather Italia, Tempur-Pedic, and Ashley, just to name a few. And right next door to their gorgeous 7,000 square foot furniture showroom, you will find the Fairbury Furniture Mattress Store, home to all of the latest and greatest mattresses in any and all sizes. Here at Fairbury Furniture, the staff is helpful and friendly, and they are well stocked with all the mattresses, tables, chairs, recliners, couches, rugs, and decorative pillows that your heart desires. Make your home interior beautiful, comfortable, stylish, and delightful when you shop at Fairbury's own Fairbury Furniture.
I guess like you mentioned earlier, we work with multiple different species, but I'll touch on hogs just because that's what I grew up, with more of a focus on pigs when I was a kid than anything. I think most of the other animals were just to give us chores, to keep us out of trouble, to keep us busy. But to put it in perspective, whenever I was a kid, grew up on a hog farm and we had maybe 70 to 80 sows, which would be the mothers or breeding stock. There was hundreds of farms, probably just in Livingston County, but maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, hundreds of farms in the state that were of that same size, It wasn't an unusual size at that point. So we've grown a little bit to maybe 100, 120 sows. But to put that in perspective, I would say a commercial operation is probably going to have more in the thousands. So whether it's 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 sows, and we're still running at 100 to 120, that off 100 to 120 sows, we might be producing about 2,000 pigs a year. So that kind of puts it in perspective a little bit when we talk about small-scale farm versus what I would call more of a commercial farm. But to go back to then your question about how that all works or time frame. So my youngest brother that I mentioned recently took over more of that side of things that my dad had been doing for 30 to 40 years or whatever it's been. So the animals are bred at the farm there where he lives. So from breeding to the gestation period, I guess, to farrowing is 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days. So almost 4 months. Then from that point until they're ready for slaughter, hogs actually grow pretty quickly. Ours don't grow as fast as your commercial ones just because we're not doing hormones or continuous antibiotic and our genetics tend to grow a little slower.
Is that a big selling point for you that you don't inject?
It's definitely important to our customers.
You ever think about? Never mind. I was just saying. You ever think about putting testosterone in them and saying these are good muscle building meats here?
I don't think you'd like the flavor too well. Probably.
Okay, just ignore that question. Continue with what you were saying.
And actually, I guess I shouldn't imply that guys feed hormones to hogs. Hormones are really common in the cattle industry, but not so much in the hog industry.
Okay.
But anyway, so from the time the animal's born until we slaughter, hogs for us is usually 7, maybe 8 months until they reach market weight. At that point, they're around close to 300 pounds. So then this is something we're doing every week. We're breeding, every week we're farrowing, and every week we're going to be butchering some. So we have kind of a constant flow of hogs being born and growing. So we have some of every different size of pigs on the farm at all times. if that
Let
makes
me
sense.
ask one question, and we'll
Sure.
get right back to the process. Did you say that these pigs don't even live a year? Like they grow that quick, and then it's butchering time?
Right.
Just curious, how long would they live if you just let them live till they died of old age?
I'm not positive at pig. They probably could live up to 10 years
Okay.
or around that.
I was just curious. I'm like, dang, that sounds young,
Right.
under a year, but
Yeah, I mean, relatively, I guess our breeding stock, the mothers or the sows, we'll keep those around for maybe 4 or 5 years.
okay.
Might not be unusual.
Okay, so got it. Once they get up to about 300 pounds, just a little under a year old, then it's time to take them to slaughter.
Yep. So we generally slaughter hogs every Monday.
Okay.
So I guess a little bit on our schedule too. We usually try to work on a average weekly schedule. So Monday mornings we're usually catching chickens, putting them in coops to transport into. We have a poultry slaughter facility in Forest as well. So we'll start with poultry slaughter. We do hog slaughter Mondays, and then we cut beef that's been dry aging for a couple weeks. So those 3 functions are going on at the same time.
And I want to pause you one more time. I'm sorry for cutting you off yet again, but this is the part I wanted to pause at originally.
Okay.
I want to ask about the slaughtering.
Okay.
Some people are like, I'd rather not know about that. But I'm curious, and the show's all about, learning and inspiration, although this is more of the learning part right here.
Sure.
But how do you slaughter? Well, do cattle. Everyone seems to care mostly about cattle. What does the slaughtering process look like?
Sure. Cattle are slaughtered with a bolt stunner, which looks essentially it's just a gun, but instead of shooting a bullet, it shoots a rod, and then that rod retracts back into the gun. And so
you don't waste ammunition. As terrible as that sounds, it just goes bop and right back in.
that, and it's safer. And
Why is it safer?
well, if you're a bad shot and you shoot somewhere and there's bullets bouncing around a facility, that doesn't sound too safe.
Right.
So significantly safer from that perspective. And then it's not so common anymore. But before everybody was worried about mad cow back in 2001 when they found one cow in the country that had it out in Washington State, it wasn't unusual for people to eat cow brains. So anyway,
Do you
throwing
sell
that
those?
out there.
You
No, we
eat
don't,
those maybe
but-
for your family dinners ever? There's nothing wrong with it. It's brain food.
We don't, but I'm just saying we do sell pig heads on a regular basis, so you don't really want your bullet left in there. If
That's
that
a
makes
great
sense.
point. Just to ask another question there, where do you put that bullet? Like
Right in the
rod.
on the head, right in the forehead. If you
Okay.
drew an X from the horn to the eye, cross right there is exactly where you hit them. And we do training and refresher training, and you have to be certified to any employee or myself or my brother that would do that. You have to be trained and retrained, and it's a pretty big deal as far as it's one shot should be instantly brain dead.
Okay.
And then from there, you just bleed them out by sticking them with a knife.
Okay, so real quick, I'm not an animal rights activist type of person or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. I'm just curious. So when that rod goes in and then it comes right back out, how long is that rod? It's not like
About
an inch.
2 inches.
2 inches is all?
Probably.
2 inches and it's to the brain as far as it needs to go?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's surprising. I was thinking like a foot long thing.
Yeah.
And
No,
then I
it's
thought,
not
like,
very big.
man, that'd be pretty bad recoil. But so you do that, and then what? Does the cow instantly collapse?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Well, that's not. How much more humane could you get? Because I hear people complain about this, especially here in Normal. No offense to any of those people that are watching, but like they make it sound so inhumane. But what else could you do?
I mean, I guess that's the way I view it, is we're as humane as you can physically be. So either you have to accept the fact that animals were put here for us to consume, or if you don't believe that, then there's nothing that we're going to do that's going to be, I guess does that make sense? I mean, there's no other alternative if we're going to consume the animal than to slaughter it as humanely as possible.
Right.
And I guess I'm a firm believer that that's why there's animals here. I mean, I wouldn't be raising them if we weren't going to eat them.
Right.
But I also going to take as good a care of them as I can, and then slaughter them as humanely as possible.
Do some larger commercial operations, do they kill their cattle or kill their animals in less humane ways?
No, actually, I'm not saying it didn't used to be worse. I mean, I would say if you go back, certain number of years, whatever that may be, I don't know. I'm sure there was a lot of problems, in the industry, but it's actually very highly regulated now, and we could get shut down. We have a USDA inspector on site anytime we're slaughtering, government inspector there, observing, watching, making sure everything's safe. So we'll actually have 2 to 3 inspectors on site, one at our poultry facility, one at our large animal slaughter floor, and then potentially another one at the other further processing facility. And the quickest way to get your entire business shut down is by inhumane handling. And it's the same whether it's at our facility or a big one. So I would say it maybe used to be a problem, and I'm talking, 30, 40 years ago. And I'm not saying there's never been an outlier, just like anything. You can probably find a problem somewhere, but as a general rule, it's not in anybody's best interest, I guess.
Right. And how do you get all the blood out then?
So the animal's brain dead at that point. So then we'll hoist the animal up and slit the throat, and then it pumps the blood out.
Does it happen relatively quickly?
Yeah.
Okay. How many minutes?
A cow or a beef would probably be bled out in 45 seconds, maybe.
45 seconds.
I mean, if you picture how fast the blood, I guess you can't really picture that, but the heart's still pumping at that point, and it just literally pumps all the blood out.
Okay.
I guess that's one thing that people don't realize, I don't think, is so we process deer for hunters as well. And I'm not saying that I'm opposed to eating deer, but the big difference between cutting deer and cutting beef or pork is most deer, are essentially just shot and they die. They're not bled out. But anything that's slaughtered under inspection is fully bled out. So then when you're cutting up the meat, it's a whole different, I shouldn't say process, but there's not a bunch of blood in pork or beef or chicken that's been bled out properly.
Right, yeah, and then
that
gives you the room where they're all hanging, like you were talking about, is it's probably completely blood-free, which I didn't realize. I was one of those people that thought, it was like a bloody room, but no, that makes perfect sense. And one more question before you continue on here. When people cut their steaks, I've heard, and they're like, oh, look, there's blood. It's like, oh, it's so bloody. I've heard that that's not actually blood. It's actually hemoglobin or whatever. Mm-hmm. Who's right? Is there blood in steak, and that's the red stuff that comes out, or is that actually heme? Hemoglobin. It's not heme. Heme's like a molecule, but
I mean, there's no reason there should be blood coming out if it was slaughtered and processed properly.
Okay, got it. When I buy chicken from Walmart, there is blood in there sometimes, and I'm like, dude, what the heck is this? Like, and it's weird. Do you think that there's a chance that the people that sell to Walmart, given how cheap it is, how many the crazy mass quantity that they get it in, do you think that maybe their blood drainage system could potentially be
there could be a little flaw here and there, but actually, what I see most of the time when you're talking about, let's just say Walmart chicken, is that you have a lot of water drainage drip out, and that's what I was talking about earlier about chilling in water versus ours is air chilled. So when we open a package of our chicken, there's really not a whole lot of stuff that drips out, if that makes sense.
It's practically flooded with some kind of liquid, and I've never wanted to ask what that is. So that's what? Is that like a solution that preserves the chicken for a little longer or something? Or that's the bleachy water.
It's probably the bleach water. That's why most of the labels say up to 6 to 10% retained water. That means that it was soaked in water to chill, and that it's now 6 to 10% water.
Strange. And sometimes they'll inject it with a saltine solution, won't they?
Yeah, that's definitely more common in pork, but that could be as well. That if they inject saline water in it.
Okay. Do you guys do that? You can be honest.
Not.
You don't do that, huh?
Nope.
So your meat doesn't... It must be good then if it sells quickly enough and it doesn't have to sit on the shelf quite as long as other places.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that comes down to just management and I think the saline water injection is more of a kind of to prevent people from drying it out than it is for shelf life.
Okay.
But yeah, there's definitely preservatives put on product in larger scale facilities as well. But our meat doesn't need an ingredient list on it unless it's sausage or something that we add seasoning to.
Nice. I like that. That was a mild flex there that you just did. But okay, so you drain the blood. What's next?
From there, the hogs scalded, which is just hot water. The whole carcass put in hot water. The hairs removed, scraped off, cleaned, eviscerated, passes the USDA inspection area or station, which he can be wherever, looking at the whole process. But each carcass gets inspected by a USDA inspector, then goes into a chill cooler. Once they hit the chill cooler, they're there overnight, and that's where they go from, live body temperature down to chilled temperature of 40 degrees. And then for the way we operate, our schedule is then on Tuesday, the hogs that were slaughtered the day before, we load them on a refrigerated semi-truck, take them a block down the street where our further processing facility is, unload them there, and then we break all the carcasses down by hand, knife and saw, and fabricate all the different cuts. So at that point, on a Tuesday, we generally have our week's orders in that would be placed Sunday night by email or Monday, and we're cutting to order, cutting product on Tuesday. At the same time, then we would be slaughtering lamb, goat, more pigs, and cutting chicken and turkey from the day before. And then all of that product is ready to deliver on Wednesday.
Some people don't like to watch the videos of the processing process. Mm-hmm. And this might be weird of me, but when I watch them, not the butchering part necessarily. Well, I guess this is all part of the butchering process, but like when you're cutting them up and then they're on the conveyor belt, it kind of makes me hungry. I'm like, dude, that looks really good. Like I wish, in the cartoons, it's always like a juicy red steak that's raw, mm-hmm. but like does it make you hungry to see that type of stuff? It's probably a weird question, but
I mean, I definitely see certain cuts and I'm ready to go put them on the grill.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But we actually give a lot of tours at the facility. So I was talking about working with chefs, and a lot of the chef clientele we work with, especially out of Chicago, really want to know the process. They want to know, they want to know what they're working with, how it's handled at the farm, how it's slaughtered, processed, a lot of the questions you're asking. And so we like things to be scheduled because I don't have free time every day for somebody to show up, but we have a fairly open door policy where we're not trying to hide anything, and have a lot of chefs that take advantage of that and come down and tour the facility. And the general feedback while they're watching the process, like you said, of taking that hog and breaking it into cuts or beef, generally we get a couple responses, and one is they can't believe how clean everything is, and two is, yeah, they just kind of want to go put something on the grill or cook it. So I'd say you're not weird in your response.
Well, wonderful.
Or your comment.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Your meat is in a lot of high-end Chicago restaurants. First of all, about how many do you think? Are we talking 2, 3, 4 restaurants, or is it more than that?
No, probably closer to 150 or 160.
It's a lot. It's a lot of restaurants. Wow. And what are they all ordering the same things, or?
No, we sell every part of every animal, because if we didn't, I guess that's what we have to do as a farm that runs a butcher shop, is we have to utilize all the parts of the animal. So we're selling everything from preformed burgers that are formed and packaged and ready to go on the grill, to whole carcasses, to some of the butcher shops that buy and break down themselves, versus, whether it's short rib, boneless pork shoulder, bacon, whatever. We make our own sausages, bratwurst, ham, bacon, a little bit of everything.
Who can you name some of the restaurants, like some of the maybe bigger name restaurants? Is that okay?
Yeah, I got Paul Kahn. If you've heard Paul Kahn's name, is a chef that I've worked with from day one. That's been a really great partner to work with. He would own like the Publican. He had Blackbird, which was really well known. They did close during COVID. He's got a restaurant out at O'Hare Airport that we service called Public and Tavern. That's extremely busy.
Wow.
So they use a lot of product out there. Stephanie Izzard has a Girl and the Goat, Little Goat, Duck Goat, kind of different themed restaurants. And we work with her regularly as well. Longman and Eagle is a Michelin star restaurant that's bought from us from day one.
Wow, no
There's
way.
quite a few different places. Michael Jordan Steakhouse uses their product.
Michael Jordan Steakhouse makes their steaks with your guys' meat.
Yep.
That is sick. That's awesome. Man, I'm sure the list could go on. Obviously, you have 150 different restaurants that you service. How did you even get the hookup with these places? I mean, did you have some crazy network, some wonderful connections? How did you get into their restaurants in the first place?
I guess just going back to, like I said, I got interested in meat in high school, college. I had a college professor, Dale Hummel, that was really encouraged me a lot to market our product because he felt like it was a great quality product. And I guess he just always encouraged me to, find the customer that can pay a premium for it or is willing to, appreciates what it is and is willing to pay for it. So instead of starting, at the bottom, if you will, we kind of started at the top end restaurants and figured, go to the restaurants that charge more, that are going to appreciate quality and that sort of thing. So I actually just picked up a copy of Chicago Magazine, read restaurant reviews. This was in 2007. Read restaurant reviews, highlighted any restaurant review that talked about utilizing local or sustainable product. I felt like if a chef is going to write that in his 3-sentence review, it must mean a lot to him. And then I just started cold calling chefs in Chicago and went up to Chicago, got lost and stuff.
Wait. How did you pitch these guys on the phone? Cold calling, I know it firsthand. That is no easy task. It is often humiliating. You're met with rejection a lot more than you are acceptance, at least in most people, in most salespeople's experiences. Were you met with a lot of rejection? And yeah, again, what was your pitch?
Was definitely met with rejection, but at the same time, I guess my pitch was just, hey, I've got a small all-natural farm 100 miles from Chicago. We have our own processing facility. We're just reaching out to see if you're interested in buying meat straight from the farm and know, where it's coming from. If I can stop by and give you some samples, it'd be great. Was more or less, maybe a little more detail, but that was the quick and short version of it. So there was definitely plenty of responses of, no thanks, we're not interested, we're busy, chef's in a meeting, we can't talk, all of those, to be expected cold call responses. But then I got a number of people that said they'd be willing to talk a little or look at samples or whatever. And I mentioned Paul earlier. I just remember his response when I met with him the first time. And he said, bring me some samples. Or when I talked to him, he said, bring me some samples. If it's good, I'll buy it. If it's not, I won't. So I figured that was a fair enough shot. Took him some samples, and I think he called me later in the day already and put in an order for the next week. So,
wow, man, you had to have been ecstatic when that first place said, "We'll take your guys' meat. This is awesome. We want it." And then, what was that moment like? Was it as romantic and amazing as I'm making it out to be?
Yeah, I guess I can't remember it 100%, but it definitely was exciting to get that kind of response or feedback, and then. I guess after I went up one day and did, 8 or 10 meetings with guys that were willing to hear me out or take the free samples and try them. I think I had 2 or 3 places go ahead and place an order for the next week. So it was it was definitely a lot of fun. And I started out delivering with coolers in the back of my pickup, and that was how we started. And now we run 5 or 6 delivery routes a week into Chicago. So,
man, and are these restaurants, the 150, are they getting stuff every week, or is it more like a monthly thing? What?
I'd say probably 110 or 20 of them probably order weekly, and then the other ones might order, for special events or once a month or sporadically.
Okay, so you have probably a number of different delivery drivers then that go up to Chicago.
Yeah, I still do some of the delivery myself, hands-on. I still enjoy the customer interaction and talking to the customers about, their menus and what they might be looking for and that sort of thing. So I still run a delivery truck probably at least once a week. Well, maybe not at least once a week, but probably at least once every 2 weeks. And then my brother Logan will run one some, and then I've got several employees that run delivery trucks as well.
Got it. It seems like there's a rise in this desire for natural, wholesome meats right now, just in society. That's just what I see. Is that true in your experience, or from what you know? Are people wanting more of this, more meat from places like your farm?
Yeah, I would say, we've continued to see growth over the last, whatever it's been, 13 or 14 years since we started marketing in the Chicagoland area. What I've found, or what I've noticed, I guess, is, we started working with restaurants. That was kind of our main customer base for 7, 8, 9 years. Then we've had multiple retail facilities that have just opened in the last, that have opened more recently. So retail, high-end butcher shops. We have worked with several grocery stores in the Chicagoland area. And I guess what I'm starting to notice now is the chefs seem to, I don't know if I should say wake up, but maybe wake up and start to care more about what they were using, what they were serving, what the quality level was, how fresh it was, where it came from, the backstory to it. We saw a lot of interest in that, like I said, over the last 13 or 14 years, and I feel like we did hit the timing well as far as it was almost a movement, to transition to that. Whenever I started marketing up there, it wasn't real common to see a name. Like right now, a lot of our customers will put our name right on their menu. So it will say Slagel Farm Chicken as their product description,
Wow.
for example. And so you didn't see that, like I said, 15 years ago. So you see a lot of momentum towards that just for people to know where their food's coming from. And it obviously led in then with smartphones of everybody sitting there. They can pull up the farm and read about it while they're ordering their product. So that's definitely made a big change in the way chefs think about their meat and stuff. But I guess what I'm starting to try to say is that I start to feel like that momentum's now continuing to the everyday home user. So whether they shop at a butcher shop or a grocery store or online, I feel like we're starting to see more of the retail consumers start to wake up and pay attention to some of those differences in product.
Right. Trends typically start in places like Chicago, then work their way down to a place like Central Illinois.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you went to where it was popular now, where it was just starting. You went to Chicago, and then eventually it comes on down to here. So, yeah, well-timed. And how do you market to Chicago? You said it seems like marketing is an important part of what you do. How exactly do you market to that clientele?
I continued to cold call for a year and a half, and honestly, my marketing now is the product sells itself, and people call us.
That's
so
awesome.
I don't really do any. I do zero advertising. We don't
Zero advertising.
Once in a while, run an ad if we feel like supporting any local event or something, whatever. But generally, we do zero advertising. It's all just word of mouth. And in the industry where we have a good reputation, there's a lot of movement. For example, a guy that might be a sous chef at one restaurant decides to open his own place or gets hired as a head chef somewhere else. And so a lot of our customers that I have relationships with, or they really respect or enjoy our product, all of a sudden they might be in a different job, 6 months later, and then they call me and say, hey, we want your product at this location because we really liked working with it before, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of, honestly, that's where most of our increased business has come from, is through situations like that where people move around.
What's the biggest difference? Try to describe your meat compared to the competition's. Like, what is yours? Like, use words that end in ER. You know what I mean? Is it juicier? Is it more this, more that? You start to run into the kind of issue that I run into when you try to describe different coffees or different beers or different wines. It's like the subtle differences. I don't even know how you put a name to them because I can hardly identify them. Is that what your meat's like comparing it to other meat, or is it more pronounced than that?
Like I said, I honestly I don't really go around eating all this other
That's
meat,
right.
so I'm not
I
really
forget
that
that.
good at doing comparisons because I guess, to be honest, sometimes I ask myself the question. I'm like, okay, is our chicken really that much better because that's what we eat? You know what I'm saying? For example, but then I guess all I do is go off of what my customers say, and we continually get feedback that this is the best chicken I've ever had in my life, or this is really amazing. So I don't really have a good answer to,
Okay,
to
no
your
problem.
question because I'm not doing a lot of side-by-side tastings. Does that make sense?
Yes, I might have to do a video like that sometime. Where I eat some chicken from Walmart and then eat some of your chicken or something. Just see if I can tell the difference.
Yeah, I mean, or a chef that uses our product regularly obviously could answer that question
Right.
a lot better. I mean, out of chefs we sell to a place. The one guy that stands out to me is a restaurant on State Street called Osteria Via Stato, and I've worked with that chef for years. And we've done different events with him, and he's been out to the farm for farm dinners multiple times, and he's commented numerous times. He's like, your product just makes my job easier because it's a better product. It tastes better in the end. I don't have to do as much to it, and it's just a better finished product. So he's like, I like using your product, because it makes it look like I'm a better chef. That's kind of a response that we get from some of our guys.
That's got to feel good getting responses like that.
I mean, it does make all the work seem more worthwhile.
Yeah.
Especially on mornings like this morning when it's about 0 out and you go out in the dark and start working with livestock.
Tell me about those dinners, because I said that was a fascinating thing that you do. I'll leave it at that. Tell me about the dinners.
Yeah, we started those. I had a reporter from Chicago was out at the farm, and I showed her the farm and talked about what we do and so on and so forth. And she got done and she said, I think I learned more today than the whole rest of my life put together.
Wow.
And then, so it was actually her suggestion. She said, you guys, she knew where, she had our product at restaurants in Chicago. And she just said, I feel like you guys have a good enough customer base. You should consider doing a dinner on the farm, bring the chefs out here, let the public come in and see what you're doing, why your farm's different, just experience it. So we talked about it some, and we're, like I said, up for trying different things instead of just sticking with the same ideas. So we built a barn where my wife and I live. It's licensed as a restaurant. We built it just for these events. And just simply sell tickets online. We have chefs come out, so it's usually, like I said, the higher end chefs, Michelin star, Michael Jordan's Steakhouse has been out multiple times, different places that people might recognize or appreciate, and they come out to so the guests will come out to the farm. We usually do either 54 if we do the one level in the barn, or we've done fundraiser events for different organizations where we'll seat both levels. It's a 2-story barn that we could maybe seat 120 people. But generally what we'll do is we'll do appetizers on arrival. It's usually a Saturday afternoon event. People show up around 2:30, appetizers on arrival, kind of a background, a little bit about us like we're talking about right now, just kind of some history of the farm and what we do. Then we go and we actually do a butcher demo. So we're not doing slaughter, but we're taking like a half a hog or a quarter beef.
That'd make it a memorable experience, though, if you did do the butchering.
Some people would probably find it interesting.
Right.
But we actually get extremely good feedback on the butcher demo because people are so removed from it, and you go to a grocery store and you see your different cuts labeled, but to see a half a hog get broke down into shoulders, chops, belly, and get an explanation of how it happens and watch it happen. So I can break it, half a hog down, do a demonstration for them in whatever, maybe 40 minutes and talk through it and show them all the different cuts. And then we actually offer the product I'm cutting for them to buy and take home so they can take home a package of pork chops or steaks or whatever that we cut, that they watched us cut. So we'll do that butcher demo, then we'll go back to the farm, do a farm tour, walk through the barn, show them the livestock, let them gather chicken eggs if they want, very hands-on ask questions. Then we'll go to the barn afterwards and have a 3, 4, 5 course dinner afterwards that the chefs are preparing while we're doing the farm tour. So it's really cool. I mean, for us especially, it's an opportunity to interact with the chefs, for us to get to eat top-notch food without leaving our farm.
Right.
Is fun. But no, the response we get from chefs is from customers is extremely positive. And they just really can relate to what our brand means more. And, I feel like it's more done probably in a longer term brand building, customer interaction than it is for a profitable, business, part of the business. I mean, we can make a little bit of profit, but for the most part, it's more done for building our brand and interactions.
Right. Are these invite-only dinners? Or can I buy a ticket if I can get in on your website in time?
No, they're just listed online.
So I could go buy one next time.
Yeah.
You got one coming up?
We usually only do them in the summer, because it's not that fun to walk around on the farm in the middle of
terrible right now. Yeah.
So we usually just start them in June. Generally, we try to release our schedule in February or March for the summer. So some sell out really quick. Sometimes they don't. Obviously, the last year or two has been a little different. We haven't had quite as many of them, but anyway. Got
it. And, sorry, I know you're probably busy today, and I won't keep you too much longer, but I do want to ask a few more questions. Mm-hmm. But so COVID has wreaked havoc on the meat industry, the commercial meat industry, I should say. It seems like, all these different processing plants, these major processing plants for commercial meat providers, a lot of their people got COVID or were out for some reason because of COVID. Some plants shut down, so hardly any meat got processed. They had to euthanize a ton of, pigs and cattle, things like that. So a fraction of the meat is getting on grocery store shelves. Demand is going through the roof, so prices are going through the roof, and it's just been kind of chaotic for a lot of these commercial providers. What has COVID been like for you? Because I would imagine, given how much of your family works for you, maybe you didn't have to, lay off people, or you obviously didn't shut down. So what's COVID been like for you?
I guess my answer to that is that people still eat. They just eat different places, or in a different environment or whatever. So with a lot of our restaurants, or a lot of our customer base being restaurants, we saw an immediate large decrease in orders, the first several weeks. So the goal was not to lay off employees, but I said it's kind of hard to think of the extra things for employees to do for very long, and you're not doing your regular work. So it's been kind of a roller coaster ride, I guess, as far as it went from being slow for a few weeks to being busier than we ever were for a while. Just as you mentioned, whenever the big packers shut down and got sick and couldn't get stuff processed. I had people, the phone rang endlessly and I had distributors calling saying, I'll buy all you can produce, sort of thing. But no offense, but I wasn't going to leave my regular customers hanging just to sell to them.
That's honorable. No offense taken.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. They called because they were in a bind, not because they wanted the type of product that we are producing, if that makes sense.
So you told them no, even though it was probably a big money opportunity.
Yeah, but I knew it was just in their shoes. They were just desperate, and they were just trying to fill orders, and they'd turn around the second, the big guys came back online, and they'd go back to them.
Right.
But anyway, we got extremely busy during that. I guess what I would point to that's kind of my... the way we like to do business is we had one specific grocery store in Chicago that we have a good working relationship with called Fresh Marketplace. And they ordered product from us every week pre-COVID. So whenever all of a sudden there was shortages and so on and so forth, their orders went up even more because they weren't able to get some of their other items. They weren't only selling our product, but they weren't able to get product from other suppliers. So and we didn't raise our prices and price gouge them. Our price stayed the same. Our delivery schedule stayed the same. Our product consistency stayed the same. Their orders did increase, just for one, because they weren't able to get his product from others, but also because they maybe turned into the one local neighborhood store that wasn't out of product on the shelf, if that makes sense. So whenever we talked to the owner of the grocery store, if you talk to him, he would say that just our relationship proved how beneficial it is to really know your source, if that makes sense. There's just like a huge difference in us showing up with product that we were cutting versus his regular distributor. As soon as their supply shut down, a meat distributor can't fill orders. You know what I'm saying? If they can't get it from somewhere else. So we're actually bringing it in from the farm. So we're actually, if we had high orders, we could produce more product or slaughter more product or cut more product. But when you're just a middleman that buys and resells, it's a lot harder to be truly reliable because there's a lot of things out of your hand.
It seems, as a prime example, you're about quality over quantity. You're not just trying to make as much money as possible, get as many chickens in this house as you can, as many cattle in the barn, anything like that. You're all about quality, and I think you have to not be money hungry if you want to retain maximum quality, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I've said from day one is we're all about quality over quantity, and that's what's important. And you just have to remind ourselves, and I've had a lot of potentially larger customers call and say, hey, can we, look at product? We're going to sell a lot of it though, so we want a better price, And my answer to them, without being too rude, is I don't really want huge orders at a low price. That's right. That's not my goal. I'm not trying to do that. If you can afford we have to charge a premium because of the way we do stuff. If you can afford it,
it's a premium item.
Right, that's okay. And I'm not out to say that there's anything wrong with buying cheaper product, but I just feel like our product is better and tastes better, and we're going to charge more because of that. So
right, business 101, man.
Right, exactly.
People wouldn't like it if you chose if people your customers now who pay the premium price wouldn't like it. Your product literally might be less desirable if you did chop it down in price. People would be like, what is this? It's all interesting stuff to consider. But as we wind down here, I got one more question, and then I got a few rapid fire questions for you. Okay. But what do you hope that the future of Slagel Family Farms looks like?
I guess I've never been real big on making big goals, and necessarily I just kind of see what happens. Right. If that makes sense. We started our own raw pet food company a while back as a way to fully utilize everything we are producing. So for example, old breeding stock, so animals that had been used for breeding that are no longer prime meat that we want to process for human consumption. We're turning those into pet food and marketing that. We do home delivery or home shipping on that. So that's something that I'd like to see continue to grow. We're talking about doing some pet treats and stuff. I went to Italy and looked at charcuterie programs and prosciutto and stuff. I'd like to get into some of that, mostly just because I like to eat it myself.
Hey, real quick, is prosciutto just thinly sliced ham?
It's not that simple, but it's
I've always wondered that.
So prosciutto is dry cured ham. So
okay.
It's a ham that's literally hung at a certain temperature. It's been salted and preserved, I guess, naturally for a year plus, and then sliced really thin. So it's ancient. It's an ancient art, if you will. It's nothing new and modern, even though it's coming back. I don't really do social media, but I've heard that charcuterie boards are all the rage.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know how many of them actually have charcuterie on them, or if they just have sliced ham and, strawberries and cheese on them. But true charcuterie would be Italian dry cured product that was done for centuries before refrigeration was ever invented.
So not salami and stuff?
Well, true salami would be a dry cured form of sausage.
Okay.
But there's a lot of imitation salamis out now that, whatever.
So
Better
you're
or
looking
look
into
different.
doing something like that in the future?
I'd like to if I find somebody that's motivated and likes it as much as I do, that wants to head it up. But I don't really have time to figure it all out on my own. If that, you know what I mean? As
Yeah.
far as just to do it would be take somebody that would be excited about it and dedicated and work on it.
So it
You know,
seems like
pretty much full time.
you're just looking to work hard, and whatever the good Lord wants is what you want too.
You got it.
Right on. All right. Well, hey, just a few things before we wrap this whole darn thing up. First question for you. How do you like your steaks cooked?
Medium,
Medium.
Yeah.
Okay.
maybe on the rare side, if anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
What determines if it's medium? Is that like a little pink in the center?
Well, I would say mostly pink in the center.
Okay.
Would be medium, or at least that's the way I like them to be, more of a pinkish red, so maybe even medium rare, but 128 degrees.
Okay. Is a rare steak, is that supposed to be cool in the center? I got in a debate about this the other day, so please settle it.
I don't know. You have some questions. It sounds like you need to have a chef on after me and
You're
ask him
right.
some of these questions. But I would say rare, yeah, would be almost cool or in the middle.
Okay.
And I've had steak served that way, and it doesn't bother me. I like it, but if I'm cooking my own, I usually shoot for the 125 to 128 temp range.
You ever eaten raw meat before?
Yeah, tartare is not uncommon, honestly. We've actually served it at farm dinners and stuff. Tartare would just be a chopped up raw beef with seasoning added to it.
No freaking way. Really?
I actually just got off the phone as I was pulling up with a chef that was wanting to order product for tartare for Valentine's Day.
Wow.
So it's not uncommon, but I don't know how many people actually know it's raw meat when they order it, if they just order it because it sounds cool.
Man, you might have to look into doing a line of beef sushi stuff in the future. But okay, what does a perfect dinner look like for you? If you could design your own plate, anything you want, what is it?
Oh, I mean, I like all kinds of food, but I'd say, like I was talking about, some of the charcuterie, salami, that sort of thing, as an appetizer sounds really good. And then, I don't know, there's just a lot of good food out there. Ribeyes, I cooked ribeyes the other night that were extremely good. Just ribeyes, and it's probably one of my favorite cuts of steak. Okay. That and flap, sirloin flap or bavette steak. Probably don't see that too often in a grocery store. It's a more unique cut, but beef bavette is a good cut. Honestly, I like a lot of food, so I don't really have like a perfect meal.
With the side of what, though? If you were at a restaurant that served everything, what's your one side going to be?
Oh, boy, I don't even know that.
Fries.
Publican serves fries with our egg on top.
Ooh.
It's actually really good. You cut up the egg and it soaks into the fries and eat it like that.
Ooh, dang.
I don't know. I like asparagus is pretty good. Brussels sprouts done right. I mean, I always thought it sounded gross when I was a kid, but a good Brussels sprout dish is a pretty good vegetable.
Oh, yeah.
I really
have
like-
some in my fridge right now.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
I really like potatoes, so whether it's baked potatoes, oven roasted.
And if you weren't at Slagle Family Farms, if your parents said, nope, sorry, you're not working here, what would you be doing if you had it your way?
I guess honestly, whenever I was in high school, I was kind of planning on farming part-time and then being an electrician full-time. I liked electrical work, and I've wired a number of houses and do a lot of our own electrical work on the farm. So I could see myself doing that, but since the farming thing ended up keeping me busy full-time.
Are you a workaholic?
Oh, I don't know. My wife probably would say so, but...
Okay, and last question here. What's the best part about what you do?
I'd say two different things. Maybe that's not a fair answer since you said best, but two
that's
things.
okay.
One is the variety in my job. So I really enjoy that. There's just a lot of different things going on. And two would just be seeing customers appreciate the hard work that we've done.
Well, that's a good answer right there. LouisJohn, thank you so much for your time today. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for answering all my questions. We nearly went for an hour and a half here, so I appreciate your time very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching that episode of The Paul Garcia Show. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and share this episode on Facebook and with your friends. If you'd like to support the show, consider becoming a patron on patreon.com/Paul Garcia, where you can sign up to give $1 or more each month, and you will get early access to each and every episode, and your name will gracefully travel across the bottom of the screen in the beginning of every episode, so everyone will know that you're an amazing person. If you're not about the monthly support, consider making a one-time donation on Venmo to username The Paul Garcia Show. Another great and free way to support this show is to subscribe on YouTube. Once the channel hits 1,000 subscribers, some amazing things will happen, but I need your help for that. Also, I invite you to follow my page on Instagram, like my page on Facebook, and leave a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or even Google Reviews. This all helps a lot and is very much appreciated. Lastly, thank you for listening and watching, and God bless and have a great week.